Hey there. Beginning of April, it is a very exciting time of the year if you're a runner. It is the Boston Marathon. Boston Marathon is right around the corner, and in the 2018 edition, it's going to be the first time that openly transgender athletes can compete in the gender with which they identify. Now, in the past, there have definitely been transgender runners who have run the Boston Marathon, but this is the first year that they've actually been open about what their policy is for transgender runners. This was as a result of an article that came out on a blog that highlighted three trans runners, three transgender women who were competing in Boston as women, which is exactly where they belong. The great thing is that Boston Marathon has agreed that this is the right thing to do and that trans women are women and can compete with women. And trans men are men and can compete with men. The only specification that they say is that the trans athlete needs to qualify for Boston Marathon in the gender with which they identify as well. So I qualify as a man, I compete as a man at the Boston Marathon. There have been a couple of other marathons that have also jumped on board with this policy. And it's not really a policy. As far as I know, Boston Marathon has said it's not a policy that's written down, but it is the guideline and the way that they intend to operate. So a couple of other marathons have jumped on board. Chicago Marathon will also follow this policy. Los Angeles has affirmed that they will also do this, and London has said so as well. I also heard that today San Francisco Marathon will follow this guide as well. This is super exciting for trans athletes to be able to be their authentic self at these races. There's just one problem that I see so far. The one problem is that Boston Marathon said that they will ask for a photo ID in order to pick up one's bib. Now, statistics show that nearly 2/3 of transgender people are unable to change the gender marker on their ID. What this means is that you may have somebody show up to pick up their packet who is racing in accordance with their gender identity, but their ID gender marker might not match that. That being said, my experience with race packet pickup has been that people typically look at the name to make sure the name matches, and they're not looking at the gender to see if that matches. I would have a hard time believing that any volunteer might raise a red flag on this, particularly today in 2018, to say that gender presentation and gender identity is so flexible and fluid that our standard notions of how one should present should be very different than they were in the past. So it's possible to have masculine presenting women and feminine presenting men, and any variation or plot in between. So I hope that when we're checking IDs, which is still part of the policy, and rightfully so, understandably so, we need to make sure that the name matches the name on the bib. But my hope is that people aren't raising red flags about gender markers now, given this new information that trans athletes are able to participate in the gender with which they identify. And so I'm very excited to see how Boston goes this year. Very excited that the guidelines have been set for some of these major marathons, and I expect that other marathons will follow suit. We're talking something like this, I think this is the right way to go. People want to participate in marathons, they want to compete in races, and they should be able to do so as their authentic self. Kudos to the Boston Marathon for doing the right thing. If there was a way to fix the ID policy, or to train volunteers to make sure that we are just checking names and not checking gender markers on those IDs, that would be amazing, and that would be the next best step that Boston Marathon and any other marathon could take. But for the time being, it's a big step to say openly that trans athletes are welcome, accepted, and allowed to participate in the exact way that they should. We'll see how the race results go. Good luck to all of the runners out there. Have a great day, and see you next time.